The Locked On Podcast Network presents the College Sports Big 3 in 30. The three biggest stories in college sports. From our local experts at the Locked On Podcast Network. We bring you the real story, why it matters, what's next, who wins the big game, and more, all in 30 minutes. The College Sports Big 3 in 30 starts now with the biggest story in college sports.
Brent Venables and the Sooners just added another weapon to the defensive arsenal.
You are Locked On Sooners, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma Sooners.
Let's start with Ja'Cory Smith, a huge pickup for Brent Venables and the Sooners.
It's crazy. This is the first linebacker commitment Oklahoma's had since Brent Venables had Marcus James commit from Carl Albert last year. And so, as you all know, we only got one linebacker in the last class. And even though the room is not, the pantry isn't, the cupboard isn't bare really, right? We're not completely empty, but there's a possibility of three linebackers being gone at the end of the season. And because of that, now you need to go get more. Well, we actually have a linebacker coach that can go get commitments, and Ja'Cory Smith coming out of Arkansas. So Coach Nate Jarling was able to go out there, snatch him up, 6'1", about 195. Nice linebacker, and he was actual teammates with, if I'm correct, Amarion Robinson. So over at, what's that, Parkview Magnet School, he just transferred to Bryant, Arkansas, and that's where he moved to, and he's going to be playing ball there. But he played ball with Amarion. So man probably put in a good word to what he's liking so far at Oklahoma. And then Nate Drilling went out there and said, hey, we need to go ahead and bring you in, especially since, he was at Arkansas State. So he obviously had an eyeball on him, at least for like the 2 weeks that he was there at Arkansas State, whichever one came first. But I like that we're starting to close in on some of the defensive players. Again, It appears that Oklahoma is now accepting commitments, and we're pushing for these players to come through. And I like the fact that we went after a guy that has a lot of high upside. He kind of reminds me of somebody on the team.
So it's the second defensive commitment in the week, really in the last few days. They got Nico Gendrau on Tuesday night, and then they add Ja'Cory Smith now. So this is a very fascinating pickup because he doesn't have ready-made size. Like, he's still sub 200 pounds, but I think he's a guy that you can deploy at Cheetah. You can deploy him at weak side linebacker early on as he continues to bulk up and add size and mass. Because you're probably going to want him to do like Kip Lewis had to do and get up to 230, 240 if you can, without sacrificing some of his speed and athleticism. And that's what he brings to the table. He's an athletic linebacker. He's fast. He quickly diagnoses. This is what I've seen, is he gets downhill in a hurry and he's able to make plays on the ball. Somehow just has a knack for forcing fumbles. I mean, you go look at his highlights and the dude's got like a half a dozen forced fumble highlights, which is pretty impressive. Like, that takes a lot, not just skill, but also a little bit of luck to be able to make that happen. So Ja'Cory Smith, I mean, he had a lot of big time offers on the table. And what was fascinating is he had an official visit set up with Oklahoma State, but after he came to Norman and spent a weekend with the Sooners, canceled that official visit.
Yep.
And it wasn't necessarily a guarantee that he was going to then commit to Oklahoma, but it kind of put a little bit of the writing on the wall, at least in chalk, maybe not in Sharpie just yet.
Yeah. And you would think that he was going to probably make a visit over to Arkansas, being that he's in Arkansas. And like you said, the list is pretty impressive, from Nebraska to Alabama, Tennessee, Ole Miss, Florida State, Notre Dame, A&M, Michigan, Mississippi State, Missouri. I mean, he's Georgia Tech. He had some solid offers on that were recruiting him. And so he was pretty coveted. And I guess everyone sees the upside that he has. Like you said, when you watch the film, he does a really good job of finding the hole and filling it up. He's a really good blitzer. And he's got that peanut punch down. So he's really big in causing some fumbles, getting that strip going. Mm-hmm. We need more guys like that. But the big thing I liked out of him the most is he goes down the entire lineage of what we've noticed Brent Venables and this defensive staff have gone after. Dudes that are physical and like to hit people. Mm-hmm. Not ones that'll pull somebody down for a tackle. No. Mm-hmm. Someone that wants to hit somebody really hard. Sometimes to their detriment, that they'll miss the tackle and kind of go past them. But they're trying to take somebody's heads off. And that's kind of a big pickup you would want in the SEC.
Yeah, and you are going to make mistakes, but it's the old adage, right? If you're going to make a mistake, make it fast
Yep.
and physical. Like, don't make slow mistakes. And when I watch him, I mean, he doesn't look like a kid that's slow to diagnose. He looks like a kid that has a good understanding of what he's seeing in front of him, diagnoses fast, and then gets downhill and makes a play. He's able to work sideline to sideline. He's got good lateral agility. He's got the makeup speed to catch guys from behind, or even, when the angle doesn't look like it's there and he has to make it up. He does a really good job of tracking back as, he's making plays, as the ball's going to the other side of the field. If he's lined up on the weak side and the ball goes strong side, he's able to track it down on that side of the field. So that's impressive. A natural blitzer. You kind of touched on that just real quick, but he just has a natural feel for how to blitz, and he did it through several different gaps. A lot of times he was lined up as the Mike, and they blitzed him through the A gap, and he was able to not only get pressure and time it well where he's able to shoot the gap and make it to the quarterback, but sometimes he's not able to necessarily shoot the gap, but he takes on the center and he knocks the center back, like knocks him back, and shows impressive strength for a kid that's, sub 200 pounds. But then he also pushes off the edge and shows a natural ability to time the snap count and get a quick jump off the line of scrimmage. And offensive tackles don't even have a chance, man. And when he arrives at the quarterback, it's like you mentioned, he's looking to hit him hard. He's not just looking to bring him down, looking to tackle him, and has really good hands. I think he's intelligent with an understanding of, like, okay, I'm not going to get to the quarterback. I'm going to put my hands up and make a play on the ball. And that, I think that takes a feel. Not everybody has a natural feel for when to do that. He has a really good feel for how to do that.
No, I agree with that. You can tell that he has a really good feel for the field,
Mm-hmm.
and you can tell by the way he moves around and watches the play develop, and then you see him just go immediately strike and go to the point where he needs to be at. So I love what he brings, and so that's your first quote unquote linebacker that's committed, your second defender, and to me, John, I do anticipate this class to be full of linebackers. We do need the cupboard will be bare once we get, like I said, past this season. Potentially, it's not a guarantee. There's a chance that Kip or Kobe can come back and will come back. There's a possibility. Kendall Daniels is the only one I know that will definitely be gone, and if that's the case, you still need some young players though to develop in the background or whatnot. You'll still have James Nesta. You'll have Samuel Masigo. But you kind of need some more. You're gonna need some more young players to develop alongside them going forward. So I don't think that Ja'Cory Smith is the only one. I know that there was the crystal ball or the prediction that we saw for Ben Wenzel, and I'm just anticipating that he may not be the last one. I could see possibly 4 linebackers showing up in this class.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me at all to see them go deep. And after Nico Jendrau's commitment, Parker Thune put in a Rivals Future cast for Bo Jendrau, a linebacker out of Arizona as well. So we know Oklahoma's going heavily after linebackers because, the cover may or may not be bare after the 2025 season. Kobe McKenzie could come back. Kip Lewis could come back. Samuel Masigo hopefully will still be in Norman as well. At the same time, after the 2026 season, you're going to lose Kip. You're going to lose Kobe. If you get him to stay around for one more year, you're probably going to lose him after that year, at which point you're going to need to have started developing that depth and developing those guys that are going to take over for them. So good work by Nate Dreiling to land a blue chip prospect in his first 6 months or 5 months on the job. He's really hit the ground running, and Ja'Cory talked about the energy that Nate Dreiling brings. And that's the kind of guy he wants to play for, the kind of coach that he wants to play for. So a good pickup. Again, the ball is starting to roll a little bit as the summer has heated up, both literally and figuratively.
There's nothing like the energy of a live game. Whether it's catching a last-minute Major League Baseball showdown or soaking up the excitement of an NBA matchup, finding great seats at a great price, though, that used to be a challenge until I found Gametime. With last-minute deals, all-in pricing, and the lowest price guarantee, Gametime takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. Plus, ticket prices actually drop as the beginning of the game gets closer, so you can score amazing seats at a great price. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? Gametime.
You are Locked On Razorbacks, your daily podcast on the Arkansas Razorbacks.
Did have some good news, some significant news, as the Arkansas Razorback basketball team had a great showing of not only getting some really good talent, but some really good in-state talent. That's the most important thing about it, right? J.J. Andrews. We talked about him earlier in the week. And I felt, I'm not tooting my own horn, but I said I feel like he was going to be a Razorback. Boom. He was a Razorback. Committed to Arkansas yesterday. He is part of Little Rock Christian Academy down there in Little Rock, as well as part of the Bret Bielema Elite EYBL program. And he chose Arkansas over Missouri and LSU. Andrews also led BBE to Nike's E16 Grassroots Championship last July, where he averaged 19 points and 6 rebounds, shooting 66% from the floor. I feel like that's pretty good. But this year he's off to a better start, apparently, where he's averaging 20 points and 4 rebounds and 75% shooting from the floor. That's not bad. That's not bad. That's not bad. He's the number 42 overall player in the 2026 class, and as we know, he's also the son of former Razorback great offensive lineman Shawn Andrews. But it was one of those things to where you wonder, okay, so what is he going to do? Like, how good is he? Is he going to be one of those players that gets a lot of love but ends up not doing anything with it? Is he a guy that's going to play right away? Is he a project? Whatever it is. And to me, I don't know. There's just something about certain players that I really like, and I'll be like, oh, okay, so this is why I feel like they're going to be really great. And I'm never going to hate on a kid and go out and say, like, this guy's trash when he's a 4-star player. But there have been some players where I'm like, well, I don't know about all that. We'll see. We'll see. But this is a player that I'm excited about, not because of all the reasons I mentioned earlier in this week about him just being like the son of a former Razorback and everything. But if you just look at him, if you listen to him, you just know that this dude is a gifted athlete. He's a guy that could really, really showcase his abilities and really be a good player for Arkansas. I think that anytime you come from a family, because that was another thing too about Shawn Andrews. I know different sport and everything, but the people forget Shawn Andrews was actually one of the players that always got a lot of love and always was talked about in his athleticism at Arkansas. Like, that guy could do things, him and Jason Peters both. But that guy could do things that not many people have ever seen. I've heard stories of Shawn Andrews being able to dunk a basketball at 300 pounds, like standing underneath the goal. Stuff like that. Just insane athleticism. And to be that big and to be as great as he was in college and then to go on to the NFL, and you kind of have to be that. You kind of have to be pretty good. But having his son now, you can tell there's that same vibe. He's not 300 pounds, but he is a gifted athlete. He is a guy who understands, roles. He understands hard work. He understands about the approach in the game. And I just really think it's going to be great for him. And I think it's going to be great for Arkansas. But another thing that this really taught me about in this whole situation with him, how wrong the national media is about Cal and about Arkansas and about players and all that so often. I'm not hating on national media. I really am not. Some of them are kind of dumb just because they're annoying. But most of them I do respect. And most of them I think they have great sources and they do report the correct stories. They don't have agendas or narratives. A lot of them don't. Some of them do, but a lot of them don't. But it is incredible where people, and maybe this is a Cal thing, they just get it wrong. It seemed like it was all but a foregone conclusion that J.J. Andrews is going to Missouri. And I even heard about it about 2 days ago where I was like, oh, well, I guess that's true. And then I asked the guy, I was like, well, where'd you hear that? He said, well, this national guy said it. And I looked it up, and sure enough, all these things were coming out. I was like, hey, this national guy says this, and this guy who covers recruiting says it. Yeah, it looks like Missouri is all. So I was like, all right, well, shoot. Would have been nice, but I guess we'll move on. But then boom, just like that. Just like that. He's a Razorback. So what happened? Was it a recruiting thing that Cal just kept to himself and then pulled the wool over everybody's eyes and was able to get it done? I mean, maybe. Or was it more of him going in at the final witching hour, just boom, going in and hey, John Tyson, come over here. We need this check. Get this kid to come. And then was that done? Like, I just wonder how so many people can be so convinced that it was going to be a done deal, and then it wasn't. Just a question I have. But I'm glad he's a Razorback, and I'm excited to see what he can do. And I'm excited to see him play. He won't be part of this class. He's part of the 2026 class, but it's a nice get for Cal and some good news for the Razorbacks.
The NBA playoffs roll on, and FanDuel is giving new customers an incredible way to get in on the action. Right now, when you join FanDuel and place your first $5 bet, you'll get $250 in bonus bets if your bet wins. FanDuel makes it easy, whether it's picking your favorite team or diving into player props. From three-pointers to steals to assists, there's so many ways to bet your favorite props. Plus, after the game tips off, you can even combine live prop bets into a same-game parlay for a chance to win big. Don't miss out. Head to FanDuel.com and claim your $250 in bonus bets today.
You are Locked On Illini, your daily podcast on the Illinois Fighting Illini. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Bret Bielema and Brad Underwood's contracts were extended. And this is what you want, right? Now, both coaches are now locked in through 2030 with options that could extend further into the 2030s. And I'm here to tell you why this is an absolute win for the Illini. Let's be honest for real quick, right? For a long time, stability was not something we associated with Illinois athletics. Before Bret Bielema arrived, Illinois football had cycled through coaches like a revolving door. Ron Zook had a couple good years, but never sustained success. Tim Beckman, disaster. Bill Cubitt, interim patchwork. Lovie Smith brought some credibility to the program, but outside a fluke bowl appearance, the program was still stuck at the bottom of the Big Ten. And quite honestly, basketball wasn't much better. After the high of the 2005 Final Four run, the program slowly slipped into mediocrity. Bruce Weber couldn't recapture the magic. John Gross had potential, but never really broke through. Illinois was often on the outside looking in when it came to national relevance. For Illini fans, it was always felt like we were just constantly rebuilding, always looking for the next guy to get us back. Always that mantra of being the sleeping giant that never seemed to wake up. There was no identity, no consistency. It was hard to even imagine Illinois being a serious player in the Big Ten, let alone nationally. That's why these extensions for Bret Bielema and Brad Underwood are such a big deal. For the first time in what feels like forever, Illinois has leadership in place that wins, leadership that recruits, leadership that develops players, and leadership that makes Illinois a destination, not a stepping stone. This isn't a flash in the pan. This is about planting a flag and saying Illinois is done being unstable. Maybe we'll get lucky program. Those days are done. Bielema and Underwood have already proven they can elevate these programs, and these extensions are about giving them the runway to keep building. First, let's appreciate Bret. When he arrived in December 2020, Illinois football was, let's be honest, an afterthought in the Big Ten Conference. Now, Bret's had a 28-22 overall record. He's been 18-18 in Big Ten play, and he just came off a 10-3 season in 2024, including a Citrus Bowl victory over South Carolina. That's not luck. That's building. He's already developed 11 All-Americans. He's produced 12 NFL draft picks in his career, and the 2025 recruiting class right now is ranked 11th nationally. Highest ever for Illinois. Again, that's not luck. That's building. His extension reflects his value. Starts at $7.7 million a year, retention bonuses, performance incentives, and academic benchmarks. And he can add up to 4 more years of extensions based on his success. But here's what matters. Bielema is not just stacking wins, he's stacking momentum. Illinois has an identity now. Tough, physical, fundamentally sound. Bielema ball. And with the expanded college football playoff, Illinois is positioned to take another step forward. This extension isn't about rewarding Bielema. It's about betting on his blueprint. for long-term success in the changing Big Ten. And now let's switch over the focus to Brad Underwood. It's easy to forget to think about how far Illinois basketball has come. Since 2017, they've had 5 straight NCAA tournament appearances, 2 Big Ten regular season titles, 2 Big Ten tournament titles, an Elite 8 run, and an overall record. He's at 165 and 101, including 92 and 66 in Big Ten play. And here's my favorite stat. Illinois is 81 and 39 in Big Ten play over the last 6 years. That's tied for the most wins in the league. Like it or not, Underwood has made Illinois relevant again. He's done it through high school recruiting. He's done it through transfer portal recruiting. And now he's doing it through international recruiting. And his new deal locks him in at $4.4 million a year, with retention bonuses at $1.15 million starting next year. But more importantly, it gives Illinois the security, again, to keep building. With Underwood, you know what you're getting. You're getting competitiveness, you're getting adaptability, and a program that constantly reloads, not rebuilds. He's not resting on his success. He's constantly evolving. And that's exactly what Illinois basketball needs in this era. So why now? Why these extensions? Because Illinois knows how fragile success can be. You build momentum, the vultures come calling. Bielema's name is already constantly being floated for other jobs, despite him putting in that poison pill that he can't go to another Big Ten team. You still hear those rumors about him taking over for Kirk Ferentz once Kirk decides to hang them up. Underwood's name was talked about recently as this offseason when Texas became open. Locking them in does a few things. A, stability for recruits. Kids want to know who they play for. Fan confidence. Nobody wants a coaching search every offseason. And national respect. Illinois is signaling that they're in this to win long term. Let's not forget, especially in football, the Big Ten is adding USC, Oregon, and Washington. It's an arms race. Illinois isn't just sitting back. They're investing, not just in NIL, but in leadership. That's how you build championship caliber athletic department. These extensions are a reflection of Josh Whitman's vision. Stability plus smart leadership equals sustained success. And Illini fans are seeing the payoff in real time. Though, if you're an Illini fan, this is one of those moments where you look back on years from now as pivotal. Locking in Bielema and Underwood through at least 2030 and beyond means you're not rebuilding. You're not starting over. You're building towards championships. I always say on the show, it's a great time to be an Illini. This is exactly what I mean. Illinois isn't chasing stability anymore. Illinois is stability. Now it's about taking that next step, competing for Big Ten championships, making another deep basketball tournament run, and maybe, just maybe, bringing home some banners. So hats off to Bret Bielema, hats off to Brad Underwood, and more importantly, hats off to Josh Whitman, who, again, I'll say this again, there's no AD in the country I would trade for Josh, and how lucky we are that he is an Illini alum. There's nothing this man can't do, and he can't do great. And the way he announced this, again, I think was perfection, announcing both at the same time, I think caused a lot of stir, both on social media and amongst Illini fans. I also wanted to bring in a national perspective. Of course, we are biased Illini fans as much as I try not to be, but let's bring in someone who covers the entire Big Ten. And when I say that, you know exactly who I'm talking about. And that's JR from the Big Ten Huddle. JR, thank you so much for joining us today.
Glad to be here.
JR, I'm curious on your thoughts. This was announced together on Tuesday evening, and Illini fans, for the most part, and I'll say 90% of them were very excited in this news. But what was the Big Ten, from a more macro level perspective?
Made a whole lot more sense than the Luke Fickell extension did. That happened about a month or two ago. So, no, but in all seriousness, Brad Underwood, Bret Bielema, both of them well-deserved extensions. I think, every fan base gets upset about certain stuff sometimes, right? Like there are some people that are upset with Brad for hiring his son, and then you see the team doesn't make the Sweet 16 this year, and people are upset there, and you get it. But at the end of the day, when you get to the offseason and you take a step back and you look at the program, this program is in a good spot. This program is producing NBA talent, and you heard Sparis Chaconas say it today. I forget exactly what he said, but it was something along the lines of like, European talent goes there and they trust him. And he said like, well, I trust them. So why do you think they do? I mean, so not only are you sending guys to the league, but you also are continuing good relationship with those players. So that way they are, then in turn being recruiters for your school, maybe not like trying to do it intentionally, but just by speaking well of the school. That means a whole lot, especially to European players, right? I mean, you're going all the way across the country. If you have another European player say, hey, he took care of me, he watched over me, he gave me a good experience here in the States, and really prepared me for the NBA and what that brings. So Sonny, one thing I do every time I see a coach get an extension or a raise or anything like that is I immediately go to USA Today and their head coach salaries. And I try to look up, okay, what coaches is this coach around? If the coaches around them are coaches that I would probably hire over the coach, I don't think it was a good decision. But if the coaches around them are somebody that you would not hire over the coach, then I think, okay, this was a good call. Or in some scenarios, there's coaches above them that you wouldn't hire over them. So with Brad Underwood's new extension and his new money that he's getting paid, he's around other coaches like Fred Hoiberg, Matt Painter, Kelvin Sampson, Buzz Williams, Chris Jans from Mississippi State is a little bit further down there. Guys that are a little bit above him, Chris Beard, Mark Pope, Nate Oates, Tommy Lloyd. I would say there's a mixed bag there of coaches that I would say I'd probably take them over Brad Underwood. But then there's also 4 or 5 coaches there that I listed that I would say, yeah, I'm definitely taking Brad Underwood over those guys. Would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. As you listed off some of those names, I was like, no, I'd rather have that guy. But then, you also listed other names. I was like, no, I'd rather have Brad. And, the thing is, with this extension, I'm a big Brad supporter here on the show, but I'm not one of those guys who's unconditionally a Brad supporter. I've said that I fully expect to at least Sweet 16 for this upcoming season. And I do think that now, when you're armed with this sort of extension, the pressure is put a little bit more so on Brad to show us more tournament runs. Again, a lot of people, and I truly do mean this, especially with this show, I have a lot of conversations more so with like students, like the people who are newer to the Illini world, who this is all they know. And I tried to tell them that this is not what Illini athletics has been for the majority of my life. And I've been on this earth for 4 decades now. Brad, he took over a program that was in the bottom half of the Big Ten. And he's, as I mentioned in the opening monologue, he's had us tied for the most wins in the last 6 years. And he's winning in different ways. Matt Painter's done it one way, and I'm not disparaging him in any sort of way. He does a very good job the way he develops talent. Brad, seemingly every other year, changes his philosophy and somehow still ends up succeeding in his whichever philosophy he tends to choose. So I think you can do a lot worse than Brad Underwood, especially with the names that you kind of mentioned. But the pressure certainly is on that now we need to see Sweet 16 performances pretty much as a minimum, and let's stretch even further into March.
Right. And I think another caveat you have to have with Matt Painter, don't get me wrong, great coach. However, there is also the possibility that things could go south with the way that he runs things. Now, Purdue has been very fortunate. Things haven't really gone south for him. I think last year they were like tied for 4th in the Big Ten, and that was a bad season for them. That's pretty good if that's considered a bad season for you to be tied for 4th in the Big Ten. However, they've had a strong core for going on 4 years now in Braden Smith, Fletcher Lawyer, and Zach Edey for a couple years, and now Trey Kaufman-Wren for a couple years. We saw players not develop coming behind Braden Smith and Fletcher Lawyer in that class. Trey Coffin-Wren did, but Cam Heide did not. Miles Colvin did not. You've got some freshmen that you're banking on. One or two classes that don't develop, and Purdue finds himself in a situation where they have to go out and get transfer portal talent, and they could, but that's not really Matt Painter's bread and butter. I think Brad Underwood has shown the ability to find high school talent, to find overseas talent, and also find talent in the portal. That's what I love most about Brad Underwood. Now, I'm not saying I'd take Brad Underwood over Matt Painter. I think at this point I'd still, sorry, Illini fans, I'd still take Matt Painter over him, but it's sometimes you look at other coaches and say, oh, look at the success. They must be perfect, or they must have the perfect situation. And it's not always the case. There's a whole lot more that goes into it. And then the other thing I want to bring up, because sometimes you're right. So some people look at it and just say like, oh, this is all I've ever known. And I get that. However, let's remember what Illinois was before Brad Underwood got there, right? It wasn't complete bottom of the barrel or anything like that, but there were some tough years for Illinois fans. Things were not going well, and things were not up to the standard. Not only did Brad Underwood bring the Illinois program back, but he's working in such a way that has sustained the Illinois program as well, which is absolutely huge in the college basketball landscape today. Sustaining is almost just as hard, if not harder, than building. Some of the top guys on this list, you tell me if they've done a great job of sustaining their programs or not, Sonny. I'll give you just a few. Scott Drew, Baylor.
Scott Drew's done decently, but he had a rough year.
Yeah, and he lost his entire team to the portal.
Yeah, which people blame Brad Underwood for.
Right. But literally his entire team went into the portal. He was left with no players left on the roster. So entire team in the portal. John Calipari, Arkansas, had a very good year last year, but though he had some lean years at Kentucky that were not up to standard, correct?
Absolutely. I know a lot of Kentucky fans who were not upset that he decided to leave.
Yeah, exactly. Some of them were pushing him out. Mick Cronin had a good year last year. Hopefully he can sustain it for their fans, right? But it's not a guarantee. They took Xavier Booker from the transfer portal. He's probably going to be their starting center. I saw Xavier Booker this season, not a starting center in the Big Ten. Like, that's a big concern for me if I'm a UCLA fan. So that's something they have to make sure they try to sustain. He's a little bit more in question. We'll see. But 2 years ago, he was really struggling with NIL. You tell me, has Brad ever seriously struggled in getting NIL? Not like, he's not the best in the country or something like that, but just respectable, competitive NIL. Has he ever struggled at getting that?
No, not at all. And I think that's one of the things I like about Brad. Like, he kind of explored the transfer portal before everyone else did. We went after guys like Alfonso Plummer, Dane Danger, in times when not everyone was maximizing the transfer portal. Now, I feel like more teams are built on the transfer portal than actual high school recruiting. And I just think I really appreciate that Brad kind of saw this early. And, that's, again, one of the reasons that I'm still content with him in charge of the Illinois program, because I think he can recognize a future trend before the rest of the country can. And, the fact that we're going to have him now until at least 2030 makes me excited for the future.
Totally. And you're in a situation where Illinois is a top 4, top 3. I consider them the second best team in the Big Ten going into the season at this point. They have some questions with chemistry, so they might not start as hot as maybe some other teams. But, let's be honest, what team in the country doesn't have questions with chemistry at this point? There's so many moving parts and everything else. So that's about all I got on Brad Underwood there for you. If you want to go to Bielema, we can.